Just moments ago, something truly astonishing was uncovered deep within the vast Montana wilderness, an event so shocking that it's already stirring waves across the entire mountain men community. Before we dive into this mysterious discovery, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what's unfolding around Tom Oar's old cabin is unlike anything fans could have imagined. Reports are flooding in, each describing a scene that sounds more like folklore than fact. Tom Oar, the man admired for his skill in tanning hides, crafting knives, and living a life of self-reliance, has suddenly found himself at the center of an investigation that blurs the line between legend and reality. According to officials, everything began as a routine safety inspection after a fierce storm swept through the Yaak Valley. But what the inspectors discovered inside Tom's cabin has left everyone asking the same haunting question. What has Tom Oar been hiding all these years? At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. The cabin, a hand-built log structure shaped by decades of Montana winters, stood just as people remembered it. Animal hides hung from the rafters, half-finished boughs rested against the walls, and handmade knives lay scattered across the workbench. The faint scent of smoke and leather filled the air, a familiar comfort to anyone who knew Tom. Yet beneath that calm, something felt off. Inspectors noticed that the front door was secured with unusually heavy iron latches, far more than any ordinary mountain homestead would need. When they finally pried it open, the sight inside left them speechless. Everything looked frozen in time, as though Tom had just stepped out moments before. But the deeper they looked, the clearer it became that the cabin was concealing secrets. In one corner sat a stack of old wooden crates sealed with thick wax and carved with strange symbols no one could interpret. Nearby, a workbench was arranged with almost unnatural precision. Then came the discovery that changed everything, an uneven patch of floorboards by the fireplace. When lifted, it revealed a narrow wooden hatch descending into pitch-black darkness. Hesitation filled the air. When one inspector shone a flashlight down, the beam illuminated a tunnel lined with shelves that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Inside were jars containing unknown substances, aged scrolls of parchment, and pieces of brain-tanned buckskin scrawled with notes. Clearly, someone had been working there, recently. Authorities were called immediately. When they arrived, they found Tom Oar waiting quietly outside his cabin. Witnesses recall that he didn't appear startled. Instead, he seemed calm, even weary. One local claimed Tom muttered something under his breath before the officials went inside. So far, investigators have declined to share details about what they found. But sources close to the case suggest the discovery could redefine everything people thought they knew about Tom Oar's off-grid life. Some believe the hidden chamber contains a lost collection of his life's work. Others whisper that it holds something he never wanted anyone to see. As dusk settled over the Yaak Valley, questions began to swirl among those who knew him best. If Tom hadn't built that underground space for hunting or trapping, then what purpose did it truly serve? Investigators descended into the hidden chamber expecting to find old tools or leftover gear. Instead, they stumbled upon what resembled a secret vault, a carefully arranged underground archive. The air was cold and heavy, filled with the scent of leather, smoke, and something faintly chemical, unnatural in a mountain cabin. Narrow shelves lined the walls, each one neatly packed with jars, bones, feathers, preserved animal organs, and plants that emitted a strange, faint glow under the light. Among these eerie findings were hand-bound journals, wrapped in buckskin and sealed with wax, labeled with cryptic titles such as Hide Study and Project Second Skin. To some, these writings looked like the meticulous notes of a dedicated craftsman. To others, they appeared more like scientific experiments than simple leatherwork. On a nearby table lay a disturbing collection of tools, scrapers, scalpels, magnifying lenses, and instruments that seemed part handmade, part experimental. Some were rusted and ancient, while others appeared freshly used, as if the work had only recently stopped. Against the far wall, several old crates bore faded U.S. Forestry Service markings, and others were stamped with FedBIO, suggesting a connection to long-forgotten government research. When one crate was opened, investigators found reels of film labeled in Tom's handwriting. One reel read, Cycle 18. Observations of hide reversion. Officials have refused to reveal what was on those tapes, but insiders claim that what they saw defied explanation. The journals only deepened the mystery. Their pages contained drawings merging animal anatomy with human musculature, along with notes on resilience, cold endurance, and the effects of decay. Some entries were signed by Tom and dated as recently as 2020. Others lacked any signature, hinting that someone, or something, else may have contributed. In one corner, investigators found a small wooden chest filled with bones. Most were animal, but a few appeared disturbingly human. Whether they came from ancient remains or something more recent remains unknown. Throughout the entire ordeal, Tom said very little. Witnesses remember him standing silently at the cabin's doorway, his weathered face unreadable. One inspector swore he heard Tom whisper as he turned away, "They weren't supposed to find that yet." That single sentence ignited endless speculation. Who were they? And more importantly, what had Tom been keeping hidden beneath his home? By morning, Tom's once peaceful clearing had transformed into a chaotic investigation site. Yellow tape crisscrossed the trees, and officials combed through every inch of the cabin. Generators drowned out the sounds of nature, and strangers moved among Tom's handmade tools and memories, cataloging each item like evidence. For the first time in decades, his sanctuary felt invaded. Every jar, every note, every relic was sealed, numbered, and taken away. Whispers began spreading among the officers. This didn't feel like a local case anymore. Some quietly suggested it resembled a government-level operation. The unsettling part wasn't just what they found, but why it existed. Why would a man who lived by simplicity and respect for nature possess materials linked to classified research? When questioned later, Tom finally spoke in his calm, gravelly tone. He didn't deny owning any of it. Instead, he said, "Every piece was there for a reason. The land remembers what people forget. I only kept it safe." His words sent a chill through the investigators. What did he mean by kept it safe? What exactly was the land remembering? When reporters pressed him about the crates marked with federal codes, Tom's expression didn't change. "Those markings don't belong to me," he replied softly. "They belong to what came before us." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving behind more questions than answers. In the hours that followed, more agencies arrived: environmental authorities, preservation experts, and even federal agents. When reporters pressed him about the crates marked with federal codes, Tom's expression didn't change. "Those markings don't belong to me," he replied softly. "They belong to what came before us." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving behind more questions than answers. In the hours that followed, more agencies arrived: environmental authorities, preservation experts, and even federal agents. Leaked reports hinted that some of the items discovered beneath the cabin were far older than anyone realized, possibly predating Tom's ownership of the land itself. Could he have stumbled upon something ancient while rebuilding his home, and chosen to hide it rather than expose it? Those closest to Tom or insist he would never harm the wilderness he loved. If he concealed something beneath his cabin, they believe it wasn't out of deceit, but protection. Maybe, just maybe, Tom wasn't hiding something from the world. He was hiding it for the world, keeping safe a mystery the land wasn't ready to reveal. They say Tom Oar's only mistake was believing that certain truths were simply too powerful for the modern world to handle. Yet, not everyone agrees with that sentiment. To some, his quiet intensity and years of secrecy hinted at something far deeper, a fixation that may have crossed a line between discovery and obsession. Neighbors often recalled the faint glow from his lantern long after the valley had gone dark, the steady rhythm of hammering and scraping echoing through the night as Tom toiled alone in his workshop. But everything changed one fateful morning. By midday, his story had spread like wildfire across the internet. Social media platforms lit up with theories. Some claimed ancient remains had been found. Others spoke of biological experiments or mysterious relics buried beneath his cabin. None of these rumors were ever confirmed, but one truth stood firm. Every item recovered from Tom's cabin was swiftly placed under federal lock and key. Whatever secrets he had guarded all those years were no longer his alone. For decades, Tom Oar had been a symbol of simplicity, the craftsman who turned raw nature into art. But that image had begun to crumble. People began to wonder if the quiet man of the wilderness had been doing more than crafting tools and garments. What if he had been protecting something the rest of the world was never meant to see? Through all the commotion, Tom remained unshaken. To him, the events unfolding didn't feel like an accident or a crime. They felt like a revelation, as if a long-hidden message was finally being uncovered. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, his cabin stood in eerie silence. The officials had left, the lights were out, and only the whispering wind moved through the trees. Yet, those passing by that night swore they saw a faint flicker from the window, like someone was still inside, working. Whatever truth lay beneath that cabin, one thing was certain: this was not the end of Tom Oar's story. It was the beginning of something far larger, something that might finally explain why Tom always said the wilderness wasn't just his home, but his witness. When investigators returned for a second inspection, they expected nothing new. The first search had already turned up strange tools, coded journals, and meticulously organized shelves. But as one officer swept his flashlight across the dim workshop, he noticed something odd, a wooden panel behind a row of animal hides that didn't match the rest of the wall. The grain ran in the wrong direction, and when tapped, it sounded hollow. Exchanging uneasy glances, the officers pried the panel open, revealing a hidden compartment no larger than a closet. The air that escaped carried the scent of oil, leather, and something metallic. Inside, on a wooden table covered with stretched buckskin, lay a shape that made every flashlight freeze. What they found beneath the cover was unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't an animal, but it wasn't human either. The figure's proportions were all wrong, its arms far longer than a man's, fingers jointed in unnatural ways, and a rib cage that curved strangely, defying any known anatomy. The skull was elongated, the jaw delicate, and the bones shimmered faintly with a metallic sheen, as though coated in something otherworldly. It was both familiar and alien at once. Even more unsettling, the remains showed no sign of decay. Whatever had preserved them had done so flawlessly. Some investigators thought it was an elaborate prank, while others sensed something deliberate, methodical. For the first time, Tom's humble workshop no longer felt like a craftsman's space. It felt like a laboratory, protecting secrets not meant for human eyes. Next to the figure was an open journal, its faded pencil handwriting unmistakably Tom's. The entry was short but chilling, found near the creek bed. Movement before stillness. Structure beyond pattern. Not decay, change. The date read October 2020. That discovery shifted the entire tone of the investigation. What began as a simple inquiry had turned into something far more disturbing. Forensic experts were summoned from across the state, and soon the once silent clearing buzzed with specialists, scanners, and federal agents. But every test only deepened the mystery. The bones didn't match any known species, and their density differed from human remains. Some pieces seemed freshly preserved, while others looked ancient, as though time itself had no hold on them. Inside the cabin, investigators found even more cryptic clues. Tucked away in a leather pouch were sketches labeled adaptive study and reversion notes. The drawings eerily resembled the strange figure beneath the buckskin. If these were truly Tom's work, it meant his research went far beyond traditional craftsmanship. He wasn't merely surviving off the land. He had been documenting something that blurred the line between biology and myth, tracing transformations that challenged everything science knew. When investigators questioned Tom again, he didn't deny anything. Standing beside the hidden panel, his face calm and unreadable, he simply said, "It's not what you think. It's not death. It's the other side of living." The statement stunned everyone. What could he possibly mean? Within hours, the remains were carefully sealed and loaded into reinforced containers. Trucks arrived before dawn to remove them under tight security. To onlookers, the scene looked less like a rural investigation and more like a classified recovery operation. Rumors spread rapidly. Some leaked reports suggested that the bones emitted faint energy readings or were coated with a chemical unknown to modern science. Conspiracy theories exploded across social media. Some claimed Tom Oar had discovered an ancient species hidden deep in the Montana wilderness. Others believed it was evidence of secret government experiments. Online sleuths compared the skeletal structure to creatures from indigenous folklore and long-forgotten legends. Meanwhile, Tom's supporters defended him fiercely, describing him as a man of respect and deep understanding. They insisted that whatever he had found, he was trying to protect it from exploitation. Skeptics, however, pointed to his coded journals, the federal tags on the crates, and the unnatural preservation methods as signs of something much darker. A few days later, when officials cleared the site, Tom returned quietly. He didn't step inside his cabin. Instead, he stood on the porch for a long while, then pulled a folded note from his pocket, nailed it to the door, and walked away without looking back. When the wind shifted, one of the officers nearby read the message. "Nature doesn't hide the truth. People do. What we bury, the land remembers." That was the last anyone ever saw of him. Since then, the cabin has remained sealed, surrounded by a simple fence and warning signs. Locals claim that on quiet nights, strange sounds drift from the woods, a faint humming, almost like breathing, rising from beneath the ground. Whether it's just the wind through the valley or something else, no one knows. Officials never released a final report. The remains were moved to an undisclosed location, and every record of the investigation was quietly erased. Still, the legend of Tom Oar continues to spread. Some say he was exploring the limits of human endurance. Others believe he uncovered something no one was meant to see. The truth remains buried, literally and figuratively. Yet as the sun sets over Montana's Yaak Valley, Tom's cabin still stands among the trees, silent, sealed, and waiting. And those who venture close enough claim they can still hear the faint scraping of tools beneath the floorboards, as if his work never truly stopped. Whether it was a discovery of the natural world or something beyond it, no one can say. All that's certain is that Tom Oar's mystery has only just begun. Officials maintained an intense air of secrecy, refusing to confirm whether the remains discovered beneath the cabin were human or something else entirely. Locals whispered that Tom's demeanor had shifted noticeably. He had stopped taking orders for his carefully handcrafted knives and traditional buckskin gear. He no longer visited the small store down the road, trading goods or sharing conversation. Instead, he spent long hours alone by the river, staring into the water as if searching for answers that only it could provide. The wilderness, which had once offered him comfort and peace, now felt different, charged with a subtle unease, as if something unseen was stirring beneath its surface. What started as a routine inspection quickly escalated into one of the most perplexing cases the region had ever witnessed. Rumors circulated that the journals recovered from Tom's cabin contained observations far beyond ordinary science, and many suspected that the strange skeleton found wasn't the only secret concealed beneath those weathered logs. Questions multiplied, and the once quiet Montana Valley began to blur the line between simple curiosity and something far stranger. Weeks later, investigators returned for a second sweep of the property, anticipating nothing more than routine verification. Yet, a forensic team noticed small cracks forming along the cabin's foundation. Soil scans revealed hollow spaces below the surface, too deep and structured to have formed naturally. When they began to dig, their shovels struck solid wood, thick beams, aged and weathered yet remarkably sturdy, reinforced with rusted metal bands. It became clear that someone had meticulously built something beneath the cabin. Eventually, they discovered a narrow shaft leading downward into an elaborate network of tunnels. These passages twisted through the earth like veins, supported by timber posts and old lantern hooks. Every wall, every surface bore the unmistakable marks of careful craftsmanship. Whoever had constructed these tunnels had worked with precision and intention. This was no random excavation. It was deliberate, planned, and maintained, a hidden world lying quietly beneath the Montana soil. The team ventured deeper, crawling through narrow corridors. The air grew cooler and still, carrying a faint, ancient scent of soil preserved over decades. Flashlights revealed faint carvings etched into the walls, strange symbols and constellations that matched nothing in any known record. One officer brushed away dirt to uncover a line of carved text. After crawling over 200 feet, the tunnels opened into a chamber larger than a typical cellar. Along one wall, rows of glass jars contained dark liquids, each preserving fragments of something, some bones, some plants, others unidentifiable. The light made the contents shimmer faintly, almost as if they were alive. Rusted cages, their hinges fused with age, stood nearby. At the center of the chamber, a broad wooden table was covered with maps and sketches. These were not simple hunting charts. They depicted Montana's wilderness overlaid with cryptic symbols, connected by thin, deliberate lines. When investigators compared the sketches with regional maps, every marked point corresponded to isolated areas tied to local legends and unexplained events. The chamber itself seemed alive, the air heavy, charged, every sound echoing unnaturally, as if the tunnels themselves were listening, guarding secrets just beyond reach. Near the back wall, buried within a wooden crate, the team uncovered a tin box sealed with wax. Inside lay a stack of weathered documents. The top page bore a faded stamp, yet when officials were contacted, they denied any record of its existence. Beneath the stamp lay something stranger still, a leather-bound journal, written entirely in Tom Oar's handwriting. Its pages were filled with intricate drawings, anatomical sketches blending human and animal features, alongside detailed notes on temperature, hunger, and physical adaptation. Tom wrote about the concept of biological harmony, describing how the skin could remember and balance between man and earth. As the pages progressed, the tone darkened, shifting from mere observation to obsession. One entry, decades old and written in red ink, stood out. Tom recounted discovering remains near a frozen creek, bones that did not belong to man or beast. He described how the skeleton glowed faintly at night, bioluminescent fluid seeping from its pores. He wrote that he had hidden it, fearing that the intervention of science would erase its truths. The The final entry was short and uneven, written in apparent haste. They are waking again beneath the ridge. After that, both the journal and Tom himself vanished. His old pickup truck was later found near the tree line, keys still in the ignition. The cabin porch appeared untouched, tools neatly lined, boots by the door. It was as if he had simply walked into the forest and never returned. Within a week, the government sealed the tunnels, citing a biological hazard. No official report was released, but stories spread rapidly. Locals claimed that the ground near the cabin glowed faintly at night, a soft golden light rising through the soil where the foundation had once stood. Others insisted the glow wasn't light at all, but something alive, breathing beneath the surface. Those who ventured close told unnerving tales. Compasses spun wildly, cameras refused to focus, and faint muffled sounds emanated from beneath the dirt. The rhythm of metal scraping against stone, the echo of tools striking earth. A forest ranger who had briefly stood watch resigned shortly after, stating, "The ground moves out there. It breathes under your boots." To this day, no one knows what Tom found, or what found him. Some believe he uncovered something ancient, proof that the natural world still conceals remnants of its earliest experiments. Others say he merged with the entity he studied, crossing the invisible boundary he had spent a lifetime testing. Whatever happened, the Yaak Valley was forever altered. The site remains fenced, reclaimed by weeds and moss, guarded by silence. A posted notice reads, "Private property, no trespassing," though locals say no reminder is necessary. Even now, when winter snow melts and mist drifts low across the valley, travelers report a faint orange glow flickering deep among the pines. It drifts slowly, like a lantern carried by someone moving silently through the forest. Some insist it's hunters, others are convinced it is Tom, or perhaps the being he uncovered, still patrolling the tunnels he carved. If one remains long enough in the cold valley air, a faint rhythm seems to rise from beneath the soil. Months passed after Tom Oar disappeared. The government assumed control of the cabin and tunnels, but rumors only intensified. Hunters, hikers, and curious onlookers shared whispered tales of glowing lights and phantom shadows beneath the snow. Glass jars half buried in the dirt were reportedly found, containing fragments that pulsed with the same faint bioluminescence Tom had described. One morning, a group of independent researchers followed a tip to an overlooked vent. Beneath a tangle of roots and moss, they discovered a narrow passage, just wide enough for a single person to crawl through. It appeared untouched, as if intentionally left for discovery. About 150 feet in, the vent opened into a low tunnel lined with carved stone shelves. Each shelf held glass containers filled with strange, unidentifiable artifacts, bits of feathers, bones, seeds, and plants. Some bones had extra joints, impossible configurations, like nothing ever catalogued. A low vibration hummed through the floor, a subtle reminder that the earth itself seemed alive. Before leaving, the team meticulously documented everything. Outside, the valley seemed unchanged, the wind in the trees, birds calling in the distance. But underground, something ancient waited, quietly enduring. Whatever the truth, one fact remains certain. What lay beneath Tom Oar's cabin will forever alter the story of America's last mountain man, and perhaps the story of humanity itself. The man once celebrated for teaching survival in the wilderness had uncovered something far more complex and extraordinary than anyone could imagine. The tunnels, journals, artifacts, and bones spanned decades of human endurance, evolution, and the hidden forces of life that modern society had long ignored. Tom's work wasn't mere preservation. It was protection, guarding secrets that the earth itself seemed to remember. Some believe he disappeared intentionally, leaving behind his work as a message or a warning. Others suspect he became part of the natural world he had spent his life studying. The tunnels are sealed, the specimens locked away by the government, but the questions linger. Were the skeletons just anomalous evolutionary relics, or something far stranger? Something caught between humanity and what comes next? If the cycles Tom described continue, what else lies hidden beneath the forest floor? The valley and its residents have never fully recovered. Hunters avoid the ridges, hikers steer clear of the preserve, and even experienced naturalists speak of Turtle Island in hushed tones. Tom's story has shifted from that of a rugged hermit to a kind of guardian, preserving secrets too dangerous, or too sacred, for others. For now, the valley rests in uneasy quiet, but those who recall the journals, the hidden chambers, and the faint bioluminescent glow know the earth does not forget. Some truths, no matter how deeply buried, eventually resurface. Tom Oar's story is no longer only about survival. It is a testament to humanity's relentless pursuit to understand the thin line between science and wonder, and the mysteries just beyond comprehension. As wind sweeps through the Yaak Valley, one truth is undeniable. The cycles he chronicled continue, silent and unseen, life-changing and waiting beneath the soil. The mountain man may be gone, but the secret he guarded endures. A quiet reminder of the wild, of humanity, and of the mysteries buried deep within the world we think we understand.